Okay, welcome back to MetaFest. Today is June 20th. We're talking about Regen Meta Days. Today we're going to be combining Refi with DeSci. And to kick it off, we have Xavier and Leen. How's it going? Welcome.
Hello.
Thanks for joining. So can you introduce yourselves? Tell us a little bit more about what the Brussels DAO is doing, and please feel free to hop into your presentation.
Sure.
Absolutely. You want to start, Leen?
Sure. My name is Leen Schelvaart, live in Brussels, Schaarbeek, quite diverse part of town. And yeah, I'm part of quite a few DAOs, Alpha Climate DAO, a project, Regions Unite. And we are also working on a lot of projects in our neighborhoods, activating our neighbors to become active and rebuilding systems because we need that, a system change, and preferably not a climate change.
And I am Xavier. I also come from Belgium, based in Brussels. Used to live in the States. I spent 7 years in Silicon Valley working on different startups, Storyfy, then more recently Open Collective, and then moved to Brussels 4 years ago and working at the intersection of climate as a climate activist and technology. I'm passionate, and I do believe that technology is here to give citizens superpower to do things that only the only few 1% could actually do before. And so I'm really passionate about that, and this is exactly what kind of all of those things are all about.
And I don't have a technical background at all. On the contrary, I'm a facilitator. So my job in my world is all about creating human conversation. And although that might seem opposite in the first, and when you hear it first, like technology and human conversation, I think what drives us here is the system change and activating citizens, and we unite in that.
Because system change, we do need that, because just as a friendly reminder, as of today, we are still heading to extinction. Concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere keep going up, so we really need to do something about it. And through this, we also really want to invite all of you to think about whatever you're passionate about, whatever you'd like to do, what is the intersection of that and contributing to address what might be probably the most important issue for our generation right now. How are we going to reduce the threat of climate emergency and deep adaptation to it and all of that?
So yeah, we would like to invite you to take part in a mini quiz. If you go to menti.com and you enter the code, then it should be possible for you to answer some statements. So if you go to menti.com and you use the code 44123406, you are able to take part in a mini quiz. So we hope you are watching this at a very early hour. I've heard for many of you.
We like to do that to get a sense of the room. And usually when we do that presentation in real life, it's interesting to do what we call a spectrum line, where we will ask people to go on one side of the room if they think, in this case, like, where are you? If you feel like really globally connected, you will go all the way to the left of the room, for example. Or if you feel very rooted locally, you will go to the very right. But of course, it's a spectrum, right? You might feel like in between. And so we have a couple of questions here to ask you. So if you can go on that, so that we can do our online version of this visualization.
This is cool.
So here we go.
Yes.
Let's give this another 30 seconds. 30 seconds. The link is also going to be shared in the Discord. This is why you need to wake up early and attend live those presentations. You get to participate and influence how the presentation goes. And I'm going to do it myself, like right here, right now.
So at this moment, we see a lot of people vote on strongly globally connected, slightly rooted locally. A lot of people think that the contributors in their DAO are diverse, and but not too many people talk about DAOs.
This is screen sharing, the ultimate version of it. Normally, if you participate in the quiz, you also get to see the result. But for those of you who cannot see the result, there we are. Here we go.
All right. These links will stay open for a bit while we talk as well. Yeah, why do we think it's so important to root locally? We gotta say why do we think it's why it's important to root locally is that because if we stay rooted locally and if we talk to our neighbors and our citizens, we actually know what and why we need to build on a global level, on a global infrastructure. Because where DAO and Web3 is all about building this global infrastructure that we all can use to be as successful as possible, the technology that Xavier was talking about, it's very important to stay close to what exactly we need to build so that we don't end up in building products that nobody needs. This was very much part of the previous system, and we need to move on from that. So to change the world, we need to take our neighbors with us. And we started doing that, organizing play streets 2 years ago when we moved into Schaerbeek, into that new neighborhood. We were both new in that area, and we started organizing play streets to feel what the neighborhood needs and what the needs are of the kids and of the other parents in the street. All because we want to stay connected with real problems, not problems that we make up in our online bubbles.
Yeah, it reminds me when I used to live in Silicon Valley, where all of a sudden we saw emerging like all of those Uber for X, Y, and Z, which were basically about really solving the problems that people had in Silicon Valley, but that were increasingly disconnected from real-world problems. And it's a bit of a shame because technology can give us so much superpowers. So what about we use them for the world rather than for our own bubble? So then the question, of course, is for us, like, where do we want to be, right? Right now, especially during COVID, like we might feel like very well globally connected because we're all the time on our screens. But we also need to find the right balance with being rooted locally. And so that's why we are trying to do ourselves, to find the right balance between being globally connected but rooted locally. So with that, we wanted to share with you our story that started like Ethereum, as an infinite garden. We just happened to live in this street that we moved in like 2 years ago, and we have a garage, but we don't have a car. Because who needs a car in a city? Why do you need 2 tons or more than 1 ton to move around, just 60 kilograms? That makes no sense. We can do better. So we don't have a car. So we have an empty space that nobody can use in front. So we thought, like, why not putting a garden and invite all the neighbors to not deploy their EVM compatible code, but kind of just to plant other type of seeds, like real seeds, and in the garden. And so it became kind of a nice activity for the kids and other people in the street. And while the rest of the world was at a standstill, nature started blossoming. And that was beautiful. And it was great to see that happening.
Yeah, and then we continued with another garden. This is the building at the corner of our street, which has been empty for a couple of years, and there was another piece of that was not very clean. So we gathered the community again, and we started another garden right there. Here you see some more pictures of that.
And maybe just the first garden, by the way, we don't have the time here now to tell you the whole story, but we really invite you to look it up on Twitter, citizen_garden, because there's a whole story where actually the city took it away because it was forbidden. And then with neighbors, we went to pick it up as a SWAT team. And so we went through the city with it. It's kind of an interesting story.
Yeah, because this mini garden actually became a whole debate, a national debate in the newspaper even, on the use of public space and the privatizing the public space with cars, or can you put a community garden there, and which idea or which option has the preference here, right? A community garden or a box of metal. So yeah, and then this building at the corner of our street has been empty for a couple of years. So we put a post-it on the door, and we opened up this building for the community, for the neighbors, but because there is a big need in dense cities for space. And we opened up this building as a neighborhood and a neighborhood community. It's called the Citizen Corner. The garden was called the Citizen Garden, so there's a bit of a theme there going.
Yeah, I can see a pattern.
Yeah. So yeah, since then we've been organizing regular activities in the Citizen Corner, like the monthly crypto meetups from DAO Brussels. Xavier is going to talk about that in a minute. And yeah, people assemblies, gatherings, the general assemblies of a lot of active citizen movements, local citizens initiatives in the neighborhood that use the space. We do yoga there, and of course, birthday parties for the neighborhood kids that can invite the whole class instead of just 3 people in their tiny living rooms, because Brussels really has very small housing, so space is really a big issue in Brussels.
So yeah, of course, invited. And the Citizen Corner, like the Citizen Garden, is basically a space that is open for anyone to use. And so that's why kind of the tagline here is, what will you organize? How are you going to make use of this common, of whatever you want?
And in that way, the Citizen Corner, and that was already the case with the Citizen Garden Mini and with the Play Streets, is like, how do you contribute as a citizen to this building? It's not run by anyone. It's a collective, or in Web3 terms, it's a DAO. The building is a DAO. How do we contribute to that? And how do we manage that common infrastructure that is, in this case, a building? How do we run that together as a collective and relearn how to work together?
And so we took the opportunity of having this building now, this new common, to actually grow the community of crypto citizens in Brussels, right? Because we need more DAOs, we need more citizen DAOs, but for that, we first need to make sure that citizens are actually aware of what's going on. They can create their own crypto wallet and so on. So we do this Crypto Wednesday every first Wednesday of the month, where we meet, we learn from each other, and we onboard new citizens to Web3. Because it's really important to meet in person, right? Because we cannot really convince people over the internet, on social media. We are all in our different bubbles, and then there are all of those clickbaits, and crypto Web3 is burning the planet, and it's really bad, and it's full of scams, and all of those clickbaits. And so people don't dare to actually even try. But if you first create a human connection with somebody, if you befriend someone, if you realize that, oh, you're also into this other topic, you're also a father, a mother, you're also a tennis player, what, I don't know, then you can start building a connection, you can start building trust. And that's only then that you can start talking about something else that you are passionate about, Web3 in this case, and people can start learning because they trust you.
Here we have on one of the, that was not on a Wednesday, but on a Friday, doesn't matter. It's Rob Hopkins. Rob Hopkins wrote this amazing book called What If, where he invites everybody to dream of and to reinvent cities and to dream of what active citizens could mean in changing the world and changing their cities. So he came to the Citizen Corner, and he gave a great lecture. It was also the opportunity for us to promote the Solarpunk NFT contests that we organized. We asked all creative citizens in Brussels to reimagine their cities, to reinvent and rethink what the cities could look like if it wasn't just all taken up by cars, if the space wasn't occupied by cars. Of course, massively inspired by the Solarpunk movement. And I don't know, 25 creative citizens of Brussels took part in this contest. And you can see a couple of their imagining the city here. We did an exhibition in the Citizen Corner, and that was the winner, by the way, this one. The drawing was the winner. We had a couple of amazing experts as a jury also.
So it was a great opportunity to invite local artists to actually learn about crypto, learn how to create their wallet, how to mint NFTs. But then, of course, also it's about how, if we need system change and climate change, if we need a new renaissance, we also need an artistic renaissance. And there is no artistic renaissance without a new way to fund artists. So the question is, who is going to be the Medicis of this new renaissance? And the answer is actually all of us, citizens, coordinated thanks to those blockchains, right? And NFT is, of course, a key building block to that, because you cannot really criticize the hands that feed you. So how are we going to criticize the system that needs to change? So that's why we need all of this.
And then in May, just a couple of weeks ago, actually, we organized a conference, or a conversation, as we like to call it, called Regions Unite. Regions referring to regenerative culture. So the idea was to bring together everybody working on regenerative solutions, whether it be for yourself, whether it be for your community, or for the planet at large. Being very much inspired by the ReFi movement, but trying to make the umbrella just a tiny bit bigger. Because we are both very active in Extinction Rebellion, a grassroots climate initiative trying to ring the alarm bell. And we experienced ourselves that the solutions, the regenerative solutions being invented within those grassroots movements like Extinction Rebellion, were very alike the ideas and the solutions being brought up in Web3 and DAOs. They share the same values, and they rethink and reinvent systems in a very similar way, using books like Reinventing Organizations of Frédéric Laloux, for example, or Sociocracy, are both used as inspiring frameworks to get organized. So we thought, like, it's not about fighting each other on Web3 is a bad solution, or just ringing the alarm bell. That doesn't make any sense, right? What about we unite people here as humans on sharing values, and then start from there, so that we can nurture that critical mass that is growing and asking for system change. That is really what unites us, asking and working on a system change. So let's unite there. And we brought those people together on 19th and 20th of May. Were 2 beautiful days.
It was amazing. Yeah, it was great, because we realized that there is no silver bullet for system change and climate change. It's going to take a lot of different initiatives, a lot of different effort. And so we better not waste our time fighting each other, criticizing each other, right? We need to trust each other. But again, to trust each other, it starts with a conversation, and it starts with creating those spaces where we can bring neighbors together, but also people coming from different horizons, different backgrounds. We each have different superpowers. Let's find what unites us, and let's all fight together to make change happen.
And we made sure we curated the event in a way that we had a lot of Web3 people and DAO people, so to speak, but we also had a lot of climate activists, but also neighbors and people of very local initiatives that had never heard of Web3 and DAOs before, even not about the way we organize. So we facilitated and curated it in a very conscious way, in nurturing conversation and human connection.
So that's basically where we trying to find the balance between being globally connected with All for Climate and rooted locally. So we talked more about the rooted locally so far. So we don't have that much time, but we want to also talk about how we're connecting basically all of those events kind of an initiative that are happening locally together with Regions Unite is one of that, but then All for Climate.earth is basically another way to bring all of those initiatives together.
Yeah, so All for Climate started 2.5 years ago in a very old school way as a non-profit. So we have a legal entity with statutes and a board, very old school. Because being part of a lot of those grassroots activist movements, we felt that they were all sharing a pain of having to go through the administration of starting a nonprofit. So we thought we need to solve this. So we need to create a common infrastructure for those active citizens, to enable them to be as successful as possible and to not have to deal with all this administration at the same time. It's stupid that they all have to open up their own bank account, right? And all have to do their taxes. Also, because of the nature of those collectives being very dynamic, you know what it's like working with volunteers. In DAOs, you have the same problem. People come, people go. You need one vehicle, one legal entity that is a background vehicle, and then all those movements can operate on top of that. Also, all of them had to go through the pain of applying for grants. So we solved that by first starting a old school nonprofit, and then Now we have to hurry up a little bit. Yeah. Now, so these are the collectives that we host. It's a lot of Fridays for Future chapters, the Greta Thunberg movement, but there is also a lot of Extinction Rebellion chapters and a lot of very local citizens initiative. Open Collective is the platform that we use so that all the collectives are decentralized and autonomous. So it's All for Climate started actually as a decentralized autonomous movement.
But on the old back office of using
Exactly.
legal entities, bank account, the old financial system, right? So we have all of those. So we are an open network. Since the beginning, it was an open network. But now, of course, the question is, how do we turn that into a DAO? And we have been through this journey already since last year, all about supporting each other. And basically, in the same way that we've been helping each other create those different initiatives like Citizen Garden, Extinction Rebellion, Fridays for Future, and so on, sharing a common infrastructure so that people don't have to invent the wheel. We are doing the same now with Web3, basically. So we have 160 collective, almost €1 million that have been raised so far, paying the bills of all of those activists, all of those projects. And now we are doing that with Gitcoin. So there is a Gitcoin climate category that we really invite you to participate and go check it out, because when you donate on Gitcoin, you have a massive leverage because there's a matching pool. And so every donation can be matched 2, 3, 5, 10, 20, 100x even sometimes. And it really is of great help to identify the project that can really help us address the climate emergency.
Yeah, and with that, All for Climate has always been a bridge between grassroots citizens getting active and foundations. And now we find ourselves with All for Climate DAO again on how can we bridge the world of climate activism with the world of Web3 and open up and unblock the opportunities that are hiding in Web3, creating an economy, creating a token system that actually, and that's the mission of All for Climate, that actually rewards community work, because all those grassroots citizens and also the citizen corner, all those locally rooted collectives, they are all restoring the community that has been taken away by our governments and by the use of our public space. So we need to bring that community life back. We need to take ownership back of communities and reward the contributors. We have to put community life back to the center of our works or of our work and our life, and put that as our mindset. And we need to reward people for that. It cannot only be a hobby. We are at a climate emergency. It cannot be a hobby.
Yeah, we need to adapt to the climate emergency. We need to adapt to this. There is deep adaptation required. And at the end of the day, when the shit hits the fan, the only thing that we still have is community, right? Community is immunity. So we really invite you to DAO all the things, right? DAO all the things like you already do today, globally connected, but also rooted locally. So think about what DAOs can you create in your neighborhood, and how can you join the movement really decentralized so that we can all rebuild resilience and address this climate emergency while remaining globally connected.
And with that, I think the floor is open for questions. We talked 4 minutes too much.
Thank you very much. I think that was a really cool presentation. I think one of the things that sparked some stuff for me was the community garden, that parking spot. You just know that the association of people are going to complain, like they need to put a car there, right? When it's giving back to the community. So that's just the old way of thinking. When I filled out the survey, I noticed too that I'm very global in my thinking, and I try and help locally, but it's hard to connect with the people in my community. How do I start finding people that are more like-minded around my local community if I am having trouble kind of connecting with people in my local community as it is?
Yeah, good question. I think there are many different ways. I think what really helped actually was the citizen garden, because once you do something in the public space, it's a great trigger for starting a conversation, right? Because the problem right now, we all have a different reality. We don't have a shared reality because your Facebook feed or your Twitter feed is different than mine. So we don't really have a shared sense of what's common. But the public space is very common. So if you start doing something in the public space, that can help. It could be citizen garden, but doesn't have to be. It could.
Yeah, what I also think is that you don't have to become a different person. You can go out there, just be you, and talk to somebody and ask, like, hey, what do we share as attention here? What does our street look like? Or what are the opportunities here? Or is there something, a problem that we can solve here in this street or in our community? Or I don't know, maybe you are a parent in a school, or maybe it doesn't really matter, like, but local, like, what is a problem that we can solve together? And then you start working together and you bring in yourself with your own personal solutions and just who you are, right? And that's the beauty of it. You search for something that unites you and you start working on that similar tension.
Otherwise, the old way of doing things could be also like just starting a meetup on meetup.com. It's still like very, very useful, very popular platform. And then otherwise, like one thing that we did as well is just putting like a WhatsApp QR code on our garage door, right? Creates making sure that you have a WhatsApp or equivalent, for your street or for your building, because opening a channel of communication is actually the starting point, right? Whether it's in the physical space or using WhatsApp, because then you start sharing and then you start identifying what is a common issue that we all share. And that's the starting point. Okay, let's unite to address that issue.
I think you also touched on an important point that I might not have considered before is visibility. Is by putting something in the public space, people are going to see it every day. It's not something that you necessarily need to be out there yelling or shouting at people, but they're going to walk by, they're going to see it. And that kind of visible engagement is going to draw people in the local stage where you don't have to be kind of putting out the message as much. So like something like a public library, like the book swaps, it's something that people see it, they kind of know what it is. They're public goods that people around the area are trusting that other people will use responsibly. So I really like
it. Bottom up. People decide for themselves to join. It's an invitation.
Very cool. Yeah, I think that's a big way that we can all kind of improve our message both globally and locally is by, rather than trying to be louder or go to Twitter and get that message across, go to what the problem is that we want to help fix and just start fixing that problem so that everyone sees this is the problem, start fixing this.
It's super small. It can be at your doorstep. It doesn't really have to be a big thing.
How do we think we're gonna change the world if we cannot change our streets?
If we think we don't own our streets, like seriously, yeah.
Right, and it starts with a conversation, identifying what unites us. What are the problems that we all share? And then let's use technology by all means, but to address those issues that we all share. And now technology becomes meaningful because it's a tool being used by humans to solve problems.
Super cool. What's the best way that people can kind of follow up with this conversation with you? So I see your Twitter here. Is the Twitter the best way to get in contact with you and learn more?
No, Twitter works.
Twitter is great. Those are our Twitter handle. Don't hesitate. DMs are open. And then also All for Climate DAO on Twitter, and then Brussels DAO on Twitter. I mean, everything is on Twitter, right?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of stuff on Twitter these days. I kind of live on Discord myself. It's like hard to focus on everything. And I can only do like one or two platforms at a time before my brain starts to melt.
Yeah. Over climate regions, DAO Brussels, they're all also on Discord.
But it's really overwhelming. Huh?
It's quite overwhelming, yeah.
So you can follow the announcement channel if that helps. But yeah, it's important also, like the way we do things matters as much as what we actually do. And I think it's important, maybe in the community, there is a bit maybe too much a culture of trying to be online all the time, trying to be on top of everything, and it's very overwhelming. And if we truly want to build a regenerative future, actually it has to start with us, with ourselves, right? So we need to walk the walk and make sure that we also focus both locally and globally, but but in a way that is sustainable and regenerative for ourselves.
For yourself, exactly. Like follow your own energies. There is no hurry, right? You just like feel deeply, like what is it actually that I want to do, or what do I feel the energy for, and just open up and see what emerges from that. Yeah, complexity only becomes a problem when you try to control it, right? So just be in it and let yourself be taken away by the possibilities and the opportunities that rise.
Follow the flow.
Follow the flow.
Great. Thanks so much, Xavier and Leen. It was a pleasure to meet you both.